Yeah, we back. We back. Now, today we got to talk about it, man. Apparently, I'm hearing that a French multinational corporation has taken a major loss in the upwards of multiple billions of dollars. Now, as you already know, back in July 2023, the government in Niger was overthrown. The president in Niger was overthrown. And almost a year later, still to this day, as we speak, he is still detained. He is still under arrest as we speak. Him and his entire family, by the way. And if you remember back during that time, France, in combination with the United States, in combination with the entire European Union, I'm talking about Germany, the Czech Republic, Italy, Portugal, Spain, you name it. The entire European Union had sanctioned Niger and expressed their support for the reinstallation of the so-called democratically elected government. Now, President Mohamed Bazoum, the so-called democratically elected government, he was what I call, like I said before, an Élysée boy, the type of leader who was in a pocket of France, who would make state visits to Paris to take photos at the Élysée Palace with Macron. Listen, he was an Élysée boy, top flight, high-ranking Élysée boy, really in the pocket of the West. They were talking about they were going to enact military action to reinstall his government. They were talking about military violence to get this man back into power. He was their guy. Mohamed Bazoum, he was their guy. And still to this day, they still calling for his release and his reinstallation almost a year later. But if you remember during that time, while the United States and France and all their allies were talking about we need to uphold the integrity of democracy, I was like, man, listen, they don't give a fuck about democracy, bro. They worried about having access to the uranium. Back in the summer of 2023, when the government was overthrown by the military, you had articles popping up saying this. Take a look up on the screen. The coup in Niger sparks concerns about French and European uranium dependency. Niger is the provider of 15% of France's uranium needs and accounts for 1/5 of the European Union's uranium stock. Are Niger's uranium supplies to France under scrutiny? Will the lights go out in Europe if Niger were to prevent France from mining more of its uranium? So, as you can see, when they were distracting you with the so-called restoration of democracy, listen, they were worried about having access to the uranium and the energy, bro. They would not, listen, they don't give a fuck about democracy, bro. That shit is a distraction. They put that shit to distract you. But anyways, man, fast forward to today. Take a look up on the screen. Niger has revoked the French operating license at a major uranium mine. Niger has revoked the operating license of French nuclear fuel producer Uranium at one of the world's biggest uranium mines, the company said on Thursday, in a move that highlighted tensions between France and the African country's ruling government. Now, if you watched my videos last year, you remember I pointed something out. The behavior and the reaction from the military overthrow in Niger was very different than Burkina Faso and Mali. It was way more aggressive. Within 1 week, they were talking about we got to mobilize the troops. We got to start killing shit immediately. We got to start murdering shit immediately. Within 1 week, they went straight to violence. They were talking about violence within 1 week. They were very aggressive with trying to restore the so-called democratically elected government, right? And as you can see, we now understand why they were so aggressive, because it was major money on the table. It was major money at play. It was major contracts on the table that were ready to be revoked at any given time. And listen, this is why Western governments invest so much money and time and energy in making sure they always have a regime in place that is friendly to their interests. Now, let's take a look at this company Uranium. Who the hell is Uranium? Take a look up on the screen. Uranium is a multinational corporation headquartered in France. The company is engaged in uranium mining, conversion enrichment, spent fuel recycling, nuclear logistics, dismantling, and nuclear cycle engineering activities. It was created in 2017 as a result of restructuring and recapitalizing off the nuclear conglomerate Areva. Uranium is majority owned by the French state. As of September 2021, Uranium is the second largest uranium producer in the world with a 9% share in global uranium production. Now, like I mentioned in previous videos, there are multiple aspects of warfare. There are different forms of warfare. Obviously, we have the physical confrontation, military combat warfare. Then there's what you call diplomatic warfare. Then there is what you call economic warfare. And this right here is economic warfare. This is a declaration of war upon the French state. When you have one of the major multinational corporations that generate billions of dollars for the French state, bring electricity to the French state, and you turn around and tell them, bro, get the hell up out of here, bro. That's war, bro. The black man waging war. Let's continue. Let's jump into some of these articles. Take a look up on the screen. Niger in 2022 accounted for about 25% of the natural uranium supplied to European nuclear power plants. Now, keep in mind, Niger is not the only African nation with uranium. It's just one nation. It's just one nation on the west coast of Africa, right? That one nation alone supplied 25% of all European power plants. Not just France. Not just France. It's a reason why the entire European Union was standing behind France and trying to reinstall the so-called democratically elected leader who had signed certain contracts that was supposed to give France access to the uranium mines up until 2050. You know, this dude signed contracts for the next 30 years. There's a reason why you saw so much of an outpouring of support in trying to reinstall his administration. I even seen the German foreign ministry making comments. I was like, nigga, where the fuck did Germans come from? Bro, it was crazy. The entire continent of Europe tried to descend on Niger last year. It was the wildest shit I've ever seen. Anyway, let's continue. Nigerian military authorities have withdrawn the operating permit for a large uranium mine from the French company Uranium. The company said, significantly escalating tension between the military government and the country's former colonial power. Niger, a country of 26 million people, is the world's 7th biggest supplier of uranium, used for the production of weapons and nuclear power. In 2022, the country supplied over a quarter of the uranium used in the European Union, according to the bloc's Nuclear Energy Agency, making it the 2nd biggest uranium source after Kazakhstan. You see, the propaganda and the mental manipulation is crazy, right? They tell us Africa don't got nothing but poverty, ain't shit over there. Meanwhile, they bum rushing over there, right? They bum rushing over there. They talking about, oh, the immigrants coming to our country, the African immigrants coming to our country. Meanwhile, they multinational corporations bum rushing over there, you know, begging for a license, begging for access. Shit is ridiculous. Let's continue. Niger's greatest treasure lies underground. Uranium is the most important commodity in the state. But ever since a military government supporting General Chiani toppled the pro-Western government of President Mohamed Bazoum, fears have been rising that the uranium supply to global markets is in jeopardy. Now, listen, this is what they were talking about when the government was overthrown. They were worried about having access to the uranium. These were the articles that were being written at the time, right? They were distracting you with democracy, but meanwhile, in their back rooms, in their private meetings, they were talking about uranium. You know, when the camera's on, they talking about democracy, you know, freedom, human rights. But in the back room, in them secret, you know, conference rooms, they talking about uranium. They talking about multinational business. That's what they talk about. Let's continue. France is in a particularly tight spot. Around 2/3 of its electricity comes from nuclear power plants, and around 1/5 of the uranium used to power them is sourced from Niger. France also exports electricity to other countries in Europe that have no nuclear power plants of their own. So not only is France coming to Niger, because Niger is the plug. Like I told you, the black man is the plug. Like we the supplier, we the plug, right? So they install their governments that are friendly to their interests, and that allows them to get access to the resources for pennies on the dollar, right? It's like getting a pound of weed. It's like getting a pound of marijuana for like $200, right? And then selling that shit for like $3,500. It's like getting a brick of cocaine for like $1,000 and then selling that shit for like $25,000, bro. It's like getting a pint of codeine for like $10 and selling that shit for like $900. And of course, the multinational corporations, they make sure that the president they have in power, they make sure they give him some kickbacks. You know, listen, we done made like $5 billion. Listen, hold this 30 million real quick. Hold this 30 million and, go buy yourself something nice. Go buy your wife some Hermes or some shit. Go buy your wife some Chanel or Dior. Now let's continue. In the wake of the coup on July 26th, the economic cooperation and the military partnerships between the two countries have been on the line, with the military government under General Chiani clearly signaling that it is tired of France. Now, listen, like I said before, when it comes to France, that's going to be my never-ending, everlasting enemy until I am no more, until I no longer exist. For the amount of my people's blood that France has spilled, listen, I will always pray on their downfall. I will always pray on their destruction. So when I hear news like this, bro, I feel like popping bottles. I feel like throwing a celebration. I feel like throwing a damn parade in the middle of the street. Multinational corporations getting smacked up, losing billions of dollars. The average French citizen, they gonna feel this shit too in the long term. Now, in the short term, France made some intelligent moves because after the government in Niger was overthrown last summer, they began to diversify their energy suppliers, the uranium sources. They began to shop around to different distributors, right? They decided to go to Central Asia, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, right? Because they realized that we might not be able to have a consistent source of uranium coming out of Niger, right? Especially at the price point that it was coming in. Imagine getting a pound of marijuana for like $200, right? For years and decades. And all of a sudden, one day your supplier tells you, listen, bro, delete my number. Don't ever call me again, bro. Don't ever call me again. I'm not selling nothing to you. And if I do sell something to you, I'm going to charge you an arm and a leg. I'm going to charge you like $10,000 a pound. Listen, you're going to be like, damn, bro, I can't do it. I got to shop around. I got to find a different plug. I got to find a different supplier. So France went to Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan. They decided to shop around, get different suppliers. And I believe that France has enough stockpiles to last them at least a year or 2 years, right? So even if they lost all their suppliers, I think France has enough uranium to last them at least 2 years. But long term, especially the other European nations that they supply to, they're going to start feeling the pain after a while. They're going to start feeling the pain. In the long term, they're going to start feeling the pain if they no longer have access to the uranium in Niger. And it's not only France too. The United States wants access to the uranium as well. They need that access too. You remember that video I put out like last month where that high-ranking diplomat in the Department of Defense, her name was Celeste Wallander? What she said? She said that partnerships in Africa are crucial for the United States to maintain its technological, economic, and political edge and power their futures. Right? So they were talking, and they would talk about Niger in that meeting, right? When they were talking, I believe it was the Senate meeting or whatever. So listen, it's a very crucial asset. It's a very crucial strategic asset. The black man's land, man. Listen, they think the black man's land belongs to them. I can't believe it, bro. Let's continue. When the military government took power, they ordered a halt to uranium exports and later gave the French ambassador 48 hours to leave the country. Everyone in Niger feels this partnership is very unequal, said Mohamed Gaya, a former Nigerian energy minister. In an email weeks after the coup, Gaya cited what he said were significant inconsistencies. He wrote that Niger exported uranium worth $3.5 billion to France in 2010, but received only $459 million in return. Now, like I told you, man, they install these regimes, these Western-backed regimes, what they call it? Oh, democracy, right? Oh, yeah, we got to. Why you think they always talking about elections? Why you think the Western governments, their number one priority is never about economic prosperity, education, the growth of local industries? The only thing they care about at the top of the agenda is organizing democratic elections, so-called democratic elections, because we know it's not really democratic elections, but that's the only thing they talk about. Democratic elections, so they can install somebody like Mohamed Bazoum, this clown right here who was overthrown by the military, right? Who signed contracts with France to give them mining concessions for like the next 30 years. They get a guy in power who's only going to be in power for like, a few years, but they signing contracts for multiple decades. Shit is crazy, bro. Let's continue. Now, speaking of the president that was overthrown by the military, sometime last week, actually his immunity, I think it's called presidential immunity, was actually removed. So he could actually be tried for treason as a civilian, which means they could probably kill this dude if they find him guilty, so his immunity has been removed. He's currently still detained. The Western powers have been unsuccessful in ensuring his release. Sorry for him, so his immunity has been revoked and he's going to be tried for treason. And as we all know, the price of treason is death. And like I said, this guy right here, he signed mining contracts with France that was supposed to last till 2040, 2050, right? So for that alone, man, he has to face the wall. For that alone, he has to face the wall immediately. For that one act of crime against the nation alone, that right there, treason. Verdict, guilty, remove him immediately. Now let's continue. Let's jump into the article. Niger's ousted president, Mohamed Bazoum, has been stripped of his immunity by the state court of Niamey, that's the capital. A move that signals the ruling military government will launch criminal proceedings against him, his lawyer said on Friday. He and his wife have since been held in detention, despite repeated calls from ECOWAS and Western powers for his release. Now, listen, the Western powers, they were scrambling to get this boy back in power, man. But, salute to the Nigerian military. They were standing on business. They were like, listen, France was like, listen, we're going to send in the fucking airplanes and the jets and the troops. And them boys stood on business. They were like, we are not releasing Mohamed Bazoum. We are not releasing him. And they said, if you invade the country, we are going to kill him. And they said, fuck it. They said, forget it. The Western power said, forget it. They gonna kill this nigga. So forget it, man. Forget it. It is what it is, man. Just whatever, man. Just, man, forget it. You know, all is lost. But yeah, man, I want to go back to it because don't get it twisted. This is most definitely an act of warfare, economic warfare against the French state. And yes, even though France is trying to diversify its suppliers, I don't think they're going to be able to get the same price points that we're getting in Africa. I don't think they're going to be able to go to, Uzbekistan and get the uranium for like 75 cents and shit. I don't think they're going to be able to do that. I think they're going to get it at a higher price. And that's going to have a domino effect for not only France, but also the other European nations they supply to as a middleman. Because if I'm the middleman, right, I get a brick of cocaine for like $1,000, right? Then I can flip that for like $25,000. But now I got to go to a different supplier. So now I got a new supplier. He's selling me the brick of cocaine for like $17,000. So I can't sell it at the same price point because I got less profit. So now I got to raise the price up. So now I got to sell a brick of cocaine and flip it for like $40,000 now. And that's going to have an economic ripple effect all the way down the chain, all the way down to the end consumer. So now when you got a country like France, where the majority of your electricity is powered from your uranium supply, your nuclear energy, the cost of producing electricity is going to go up, right? So now the average French citizen, their electric bill is going to go up. Yeah. The French are going to be riding in the streets because that energy bill going to be looking crazy. The energy bill going to be looking crazy in a few years if this remains on the books. And that's the best case scenario. The best case scenario is that the cost of producing energy and the energy bill is going to go up, right? The cost of energy is going to go up for France and also the average French citizen. The worst case scenario is that France doesn't have enough uranium to supply itself and its allies, and there's going to be power shortages in France. You know what I'm saying? Y'all going to be doing your homework. You're going to be on the computer and the motherfucking Wi-Fi going to go out because the power went out. Listen, niggas going to be in the dark in France. You know what I'm saying? Y'all going to be in the dark real soon. And we just talking about the average French citizen. We're not talking about the French entrepreneurs, the small business owners, right? Because your energy bill is going to go up too. Your electric bill is going to go up too. And in order to make up that difference, you're going to have to raise the prices on your goods and services. So now your your customers coming into your store, coming into your shop, coming to buy what you have to sell, they're going to be upset because I used to buy this for $10. Why is it, $25 now? What's going on, bro? My electric bill going crazy, bro. I got to stay profitable. I'm sorry, and in order for me to keep my doors open, I have to raise the prices to the end consumer. So not only is the end consumer's electric bill is going to go up, but now the cost of goods and services is going to go up because these businesses have to keep their electricity on, right? So everybody's prices is going to go up. Everybody's going to feel the pain. And not only that, the small business owner might not be able to employ as many people as he did before because the electric bill is going crazy. The energy bill going crazy. Energy is becoming a scarce commodity. So now you're going to have higher unemployment rates because you're not going to be able to provide as many jobs as you did before because you have to make up the difference by the rise in prices. And we're just talking about the average citizen and the business owners. The government itself is going to feel the pain as well because they're going to have to take money allocated to different sectors and put it towards acquiring uranium from different suppliers at a higher price. So the money that was going to go to maybe the healthcare sector or infrastructure or education, we now have to put that money towards keeping our energy stable. So now other sectors in the economy and the country are going to get neglected. And this is even going to have an effect on the romantic relations happening in France. Because if you're a young man living in France, right, you're not going to have as much money in your pocket due to everything I mentioned before, right? Higher unemployment, higher cost and rising prices, the bills, the higher cost in bills, paying bills. You're going to have less money in your pocket. It's going to be less money circulating the economy. You're not going to be able to take that woman out for a nice date. You're going to have to sit at home and save your money, bro. Niggas going to be broke. The average Frenchman going to be out here struggling. Going to be out here struggling. It is what it is. But on the contrast, in the long term, right? We're talking about long term, right? In the long term, now that Niger is not going to have France sucking them dry so crazy at a crazy rate, getting things for pennies on the dollar, now you're going to be able to stimulate your economy by actually retaining the profits that was getting sent away to Paris. Where instead of the uranium getting sent away to these Western actors for like 75 cents, now you can actually retain your profits and actually invest that money in different sectors, in different, infrastructure, healthcare, education, and things that can actually boost the quality of life for the population, right? You can actually provide jobs for your people, right? You can actually diversify your economy from the revenue made from the uranium. You can actually take your time to develop the country because the money that was being sent away to France is now remaining in your state coffers. You can actually reevaluate the old contracts and actually make deals that actually make sense, that actually are profitable for your nation. So while France is going to be facing higher energy costs and economic challenges and unemployment and inflation, you're now in a prime position to actually improve your economy and your living standards, right? So like I said, it takes good leadership though. It takes patriotic, nationalistic, and solid leadership, because it makes no sense why the white children in France get to enjoy living in a safe and illuminated and electrified environment, and the black children in Niger don't get to enjoy those same luxuries and amenities of electricity and a decent quality of life. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. But like I said, life is about power, not morality. People don't do things that make sense. People do things that are in their best interest. So black man, you must do whatever is in your best interest. Who cares what happens to other people? That's your mentality. Who cares if they starve? Who cares if they starve in France? Who cares if the lights go out in France? That's none of our concern. That is none of our concern. If the lights go out in France, if they starve in France, if the economy tanks in France, that is none of our concern as black men, as African men. That's their business. Our concern is making sure that our people got what they need. And yeah, you could say, well, what about our people living in France? Well, guess what? When we establish and solidify our countries and establish our economies and consolidate our economies, then guess what? Our people don't got to be living in France no more. They can come back home, baby. They can come back home. That should be the long-term goal. Anyways, man, it's your boy Nefakari the Salim back in the Billy. Yes, indeed. Cash App in the description. Support the album, man. Support the album. Peace.
No. Feel like I'm 75. Know that your team be full of them traders. You know that can never be mine. I'm grabbing a thought when I drive. I'm back in my zone and we on. She said that she ready to come be my wifey and hoping I don't do her wrong. I gave her my word and it's bond. I'm whipping the best like a lamb. I'm eating no chicken and lamb. Accustomed to call me the man. I never be up on the gram. I'm keeping that way undercover. She want me to tell her I love her. I told her I'm breaking the rules. I told her we making the news. Back in my city they loving me. Standing alone I'm 100 deep. Enemy plotting and still in reach. They try to make sure that we underneath. Trying to make sure that we never make it. Coming for power, come get acquainted. Coming for everything that I wanted. Feeling like Drake but I really wrote it. Feeling like Kendrick, I'm checking names. Gotta roll up while I go insane. Got so much stress I been gained weight. Stuffing these racks in this Louis case. One thing for certain, I'm about to check. Keep it 100 and nothing less. Stick with the family since day one. Had to stay down till my day come. Had to stay down but I'm never patient. Hop on the mic and I'm motivated. Hop on the mic and I drop a classic. Haters can't see me, they copping glasses. Back in the studio making magic. Got a new tape and it's in production. Back on my business, I got a budget. Staying low key when I'm out in public. Feel like I'm 75. Know that your team be full of them traders. You know that can never be mine. I'm grabbing a thought when I drive. I'm back in my zone and we on. She said that she ready to come be my wifey and hoping I don't do her wrong. I gave her my word and it's bond. I'm whipping the best like a lamb. I'm eating no chicken and lamb. Accustomed to call me the man. I never be up on the gram. I'm keeping that way undercover. She want me to tell her I love her. I told her I'm breaking the rules. I told her we making the news.